I'm Shannon.
I'm Alyssa.
And what movie do we have today?
Today we are talking about House of the Witch.
I'm very excited.
Yes. I've got 8 pages of notes for this one, but I'm going to try my best to summarize it pretty well.
Let's hop right in then.
Yeah, let's hop right in. So, again, I didn't check what year this was.
Do you have like an idea?
I'm pretty sure it's been in the last 5 years at least.
Okay. And spoiler alert.
Yeah,
if you
obviously.
Care.
Yeah.
So
a lot of spoiler alert because I'm going to be telling you the whole damn movie. So the synopsis of this one though is a group of daring teens find themselves in a fight for their lives inside a haunted house when a sinister spirit crashes their Halloween party.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one, the whole time I was watching it, the first time I watched it, I thought maybe I was picking up on things weird. But the second time I watched it, I'm like, they were setting this up for something. And then they pussed out. So
really?
That's what I felt like. That or they were trying to confuse the audience and be like, "Ooh, is this going to happen?" And it didn't. So
there's a lot going on that doesn't go on.
Yeah. Well, it just little things that they sprinkle in there that you're like, oh, what is that about? What, But maybe it's just me.
Okay.
I don't know. But if you watched it, I feel like you'd be like, oh, is this what it's going to be?
Maybe it's just misleading the whole time.
But so I'm like, okay. But then you think this is going to happen, but it's fine. Okay. So first of all, we start off with a thing that happened a year ago to kind of, set up, and it shows some kid riding up to this spookity house, right? He stops at this gate. Well, it does a really long shot of him driving up a very normal street, trees and cars planted, normal looking houses. And then all of a sudden at the very end of the street, there is a manor.
The most fucking haunted house you've ever seen.
You have to drive up to get to it. And it's just this, it's fine. Okay. And then it shows him stopping at the gate, looking at the house. And then it does a flashback. There's 2 flashbacks in one scene?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So it's a flashback of him talking to some girl, and the girl's like, it's Halloween, we need to do something spooky. And he's like, well, what should we do? And she goes, oh, I think you should go get the numbers on the door of the spookity house. And he's like, okay, but what do I get if I do that? And she goes, get those numbers.
Take them off
take them off the house.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's like, get those numbers and you get my number. And you're like, she's a girl dressed as a lame cat. Do you want her?
Ears on her lingerie.
Yep. So he goes up to the house. He rides up to the house, and he gets up there and starts trying to remove the numbers from the door. And one of them falls down, and so he bends down to pick it up when the door, flings open. Mm-hmm. And he's like... Oh, the one thing I noticed that he's standing there, staring at the door for a very long time. And this drives me crazy in movies. And I know they tell them not to worry about it. But every time you're in a movie and, the wind is,
yeah.
And they're just,
going about their business.
But, yeah, I'm like, no, fucking... Get out of my face. What? No, it just, shit like that drives me crazy.
That's why we both have a ponytail.
It's just, drives me crazy. It's not a thing that normal people do.
Right.
So stop doing it in movies. Okay. But the kid tries to pry him off the door. The door then gets, busted open. And he's like, shush, that's my dog. I'm sorry. And he's like, hello, which I don't normally have a problem with that in a lot of these movies, especially because he's like, the house is supposed to be abandoned.
Yeah.
And it's the door just opened, so he's like, hello, okay. And then they have this spooky, smoky stuff coming towards you, right? And that's for you to know that that's the witch. Okay?
Right.
And so it grabs around him and yanks him into the house and slams the door shut, and you just hear him yelling for help, and then that's it. And then it goes 1 year later, right?
Okay.
And nothing else. They don't care about that kid, apparently. They don't care about him well enough because they never mentioned him again. Okay. So then it shows the town on Halloween a year later, a girl named Lana. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce it because I heard them say it a couple of different times.
Okay.
But I think it was just who was talking to her at the time. Anyway, so I'm going to call her Lana, is sitting in a cafe on her phone just, And her mom comes up to her and she's like, it's just so nice to have you home for the holidays from college and stuff. And she's like, whatever, I'm not even going to be here that long right now. And I'm like, you fucking be nice to your mother, bitch. But you can instantly tell she's not like other girls because she's wearing camo and lots of rings on her fingers. And her hair is all like this and like...
Right.
And she reads books. And...
Whoa.
Yeah. And she's smart and just... It's stupid. Anyway, apparently she used to live in this town when they were, or when she was 5 or 6 or something, and her aunt owned the diner and passed away. And so the mom came to work at the diner because it's still in the family. And so she wanted to keep it in the family. So she's back visiting, and she's visiting an old friend from when she was a kid. I'm not sure if like she was a kid and knew her, and so it's been years since she's seen her, or if they were still stayed friends throughout. I don't entirely know. They don't clarify that very well, but she's going to go hang out with Rachel and Rachel's friends. Okay. And Rachel is dating this guy named Shane. Anyway, so Shane is like intent on just working in a mechanic shop for the rest of his life, kind of a thing. That's you know, he's good being a small town boy, right? But his stepdad wants more for him. His stepdad is the local sheriff and wants him to like have aspirations in life. And he's like, well, is there something wrong with working in a mechanic shop? And he's like, no, but when you're 60 years old and your like hands are all knotted up and stuff, he's like, you're going to be remembering this conversation. Yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, because it's one of the 3 we've had. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay. You know, so burn. And but he's like, well, I want you to show up tonight at 8. I've got another meeting for you. He never says what the meeting is. He's just like, I've got a meeting for you to like show up at 8. And he's like, okay, I'll think about it. I'm hanging out with friends, but I'll think about it. And he's like, you need to think about your future. All of your friends are off at college. Like, you need to figure stuff out. And he's like, okay, I'll think about it. But then he decides not to go. He wants to go hang out with his girlfriend and his friends, right? Because his girlfriend's back from college too, Rachel. And so they go and they show Lana coming out, or Lana, I'm just going to say it wrong every time. But they show her coming out of a gas station and giving something to Rachel, and you meet Taylor and Dax. The Taylor is an Asian girl, so I'm sorry if I just end up calling her the Asian girl because I forgot her name through half of these notes. And then Dax, which is like the coolest looking black guy I've ever seen. He's got like the nicest little like 90s cut,
flat top,
but he's like in a nice sweater vest and stuff, and just he doesn't look like the type of guy that would be hanging out with these kids, but also very much looks like the type of guy that would be hanging out with these kids. I don't know. So they're all hanging out. Oh, I totally forgot. Brody and Lloyd. Okay, they're some of their other friends. They are hanging out with them too. And the plan is to go up to the manor and hang out there on Halloween night because it's haunted and so it's spooky. But Brody and Lloyd get there early because they planned on being in the house and scaring the girls, because that's what you do on Halloween is you scare the girls and then they want to jump your bones. Obviously. Yeah, because that's exactly what I want to do when I'm scared, right? Yeah. And so, anyway, but Brody starts pussing out, and Lloyd is like, well, I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to start scaring everybody and stuff. And he's like, okay, you go in there, big guy. And so, shut up, Google. No. So he goes in there, and then Brody takes his truck and drives off, which I want to know what their plan was with the truck anyway, because if both of them were going to go inside, they'd have to leave the truck outside, or they'd have to like try to hide it or something, like
walk up to the house, or
I don't know, but anyway, so Brody takes off with the truck, and then he goes to pick everybody else up, right? And Lana the whole time is being like really weird right here at the very beginning of the movie. Very weird towards Rachel. It's a lot of just like, well, here you go, Rachel. I got this for you. Like, and then it's
so she's gay.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. But then the boyfriend, Shane, I should say. I call him boyfriend in my notes a lot. So I've got boyfriend and then shit boyfriend, because Brody is apparently dating Taylor and he's the shit boyfriend. So fair. She just keeps giving her this like look that she's jealous of Shane and stuff, and I just think it's extra weird. It's just okay, a little too weird for me. Which, I mean, you just don't be a jealous hoe.
Don't be weird about it.
Don't be weird about it. Yeah. So they all get in the back of Brody's truck and they start driving away. And they're going towards the house, and they're talking about how she's like, well, I don't even remember this, house really being a thing. And they were like, yeah, it's just this haunted house and everything. And the whole time Rachel's like, it's not haunted. It's not haunted.
Come on, guys.
It's not haunted and stuff. And like, they were just going off for a little bit about how like every town has the haunted house, And she was like, yeah, I remember having one in the town I grew up in after we moved. And she's like, kids used to go egg it all the time. And Shane, the boyfriend, is like, well, did you go do it? And she's like, no, I felt too bad to do that. And he goes, that's a shame. Like, and he's being weirdly flirty with her, like weirdly giving her a lot of attention. I was just like, this is a lot of weird tensions happening. And so, Anyway, but he's like, yeah, she's a good girl and stuff. And she's like, well, I don't know about that. Like, and I'm like, oh, stop. What is happening? Like, no. Anyway, so they have to park outside on the street, because if they park in front of the house and a cop drives past, they're going to know people are in there, Right. So they park on the street and they start walking up towards the house. It's maybe maybe a 3-minute walk from the street all the way up to the manor and stuff. And the whole time Taylor is like, my feet hurt, I'm gonna die, oh my gosh, and she's just the whiniest bitch about it. They get into the house. It's just not locked. It's just not locked. There's still stuff everywhere in the house. Like, it's very much abandoned. Yeah, someone owns it, but they're like not doing anything with it, so it's just falling apart. Anyway, Dax goes in and starts like flipping the same light switches over and over again, and then the lights turn on, and he's like, hey, we still have electricity. I'm like, that's not how that would work.
No,
like, it's not like it's a primer switch or something. Like, no, it's just
and also, like, why would there be electricity?
I have no idea.
Like, no, what? No idea. If no one is paying attention enough to keep the house decent, no.
So yeah, so then I'm thinking, oh, it's probably the witch, like, it's probably the witch's power, like, oh, people are in here, she's taking their energy, kind of a thing. That's what I thought it was.
Magic-y magic.
But they're all like, yeah, we got electricity, ha 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 ha. So they go into, they start like hanging out around, and immediately Brody and Taylor are just like, hey, let's go explore.
Just the two of us.
So they go to explore.
Okay.
And then Rachel is like, Shane, let's go explore. So they go off to explore.
Horror movie sins.
Immediately, like 2 seconds into it, Boy. So then Brody and Rachel, like, they can't even wait to get into a bedroom. They just start making out in a hallway. And there's, like, blood that starts, like, pouring down the walls. What? And they touch it, and they're like, ew, what is this? And, like, just, they start laughing it off. They think it's just, like, mold or something on the walls. But it's, like, oozing down the walls. Like, immediately, like, this ghost is on it, And so they go off, and Shane and Rachel start making out on a bed upstairs. And there's this chair in the corner of the room that has a cloth over it, because, you can't have any furniture in a haunted house that doesn't have a cloth laying over the top of it. And it starts moving a little. And Rachel's like,
am I seeing things?
And so, but then she and Shane kind of get into this weird conversation of just like she's being a little more aggressive than he's used to or something. And he's like, hey, slow down and stuff. She's like, what are you talking about? I missed you and stuff. And he's like, are you sure you didn't like learn that from some other guy in college and stuff? And I'm like, you were flirting with another girl
right in front of her.
Okay, whatever though. So she's like, no, I'm not doing anything like that. I'm here with you. I just want to like be with you right now. And then the chair starts moving again. She freaks out and is like, no, we got to get out of here. Yeah. So they go downstairs, but then it shows Lana and Dax walking around in a parlor and stuff, looking around, because she doesn't know who he is and he doesn't know who she is and stuff, but he's just all like, okay, here's my chance. Like, she's cute. I'll kind of, try to talk to her and stuff, but it does not go very far, because they start looking at these like photos of the families that are up on top of the mantle, and she picks up one and hands it to him to look at, and he looks at it and it's immediately skeleton people and drops it, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, what was that? And she's like, what? There's nothing wrong with it. And he's like, that was weird. Did you not see that? And she's like, no, I didn't see anything. And so she like, puts it back up, and he's like, okay. And yeah, that just doesn't go very well for him trying to hit on her. But then there's this like phonograph in the room, like the old crank ones and stuff, that just starts playing the weirdest fucking song. Okay.
I mean, as you do.
It's like, if I can find a clip of the song, I'll put it in here.
Okay.
Because it's like, I got hit a lot as a child, and just like, and she's singing like this the whole time in the song, and like, it's terrible.
And it's about child abuse?
I have no idea, because you can barely understand the lyrics, but like, that's definitely one of the lyrics I heard. Like,
that's fun.
It's very weird.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that comes on, and they're like, oh, okay, that's really weird. And then Brody and Taylor come back in, and Shane and Rachel come back in the room, because, they're all done doing their things and stuff. So they're like, oh, who turned on the music and everything? And Lana and Dax are like, not us. Like, we didn't do that. And Lana like sees this photo of a young girl, like this really pretty girl. And you keep seeing it, like there's so many times they show it in the rest of the movie. And she's like staring into it for a good little minute, and she totally gets lost staring into it. She picks it up and then like starts getting this like really weird sensation, and she keeps glancing over her shoulder for way too long, filmmakers, to this other chair, and it flashes this like someone standing up out of it, and she starts screaming and freaking out and gets a nosebleed. And they're all like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What's going on? And she's like, okay, I don't like this. I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. And they're like, no, it's okay. Everything's fine. But she's like, nope, I'm leaving. I don't want to be here anymore. And they're like, okay, we'll go. And so she goes to leave and like goes to pull open the door, and it slams shut, like pulls right out of her hand and slams shut. And Taylor is just like, guys, this is so dumb. You guys are like so bad at pranking us. And everybody else is like, why did you just slam the door shut? And she's like, I didn't slam the door shut. And Taylor's just like, ha, 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 in the background. And like, I'm like, shut up, bitch. So they're all, but Alana's just going off about how weird the house is. Like, she just gets a weird feeling. And she's like, Dax, you know what I mean, right? And he's like, kind of trying to take her side, but he doesn't want his friends to think that he's a weirdo. Right. And so he's like, I mean, it's weird in here, you know, guys. Like, maybe we should just leave and stuff. And they start pulling out their cell phones to like see if they can, I don't know. Oh, they decide that they're gonna call Lloyd because Brody is just like, well, Lloyd must be scaring us. And so they're like, oh, of course Lloyd's here. And Taylor's like, I knew it. Ha ha ha. And he's like, but how would Lloyd have done this? You know, and they're like, I don't know. And so they pull out their phone to call him. And they realize that they don't have any service in here, which they did before, but it's clearly the witch that's stopping them, right? But they realize that they just can't get the door open. And they're like, it's got to be locked. And they're like, from the outside, it's like, there's the lock right here. We can't, you know. Yeah. And so Dax, in his little scrawny, you know, sweater vest, starts trying to like slam open the door and somehow cuts his shoulder or like his back over here on the door. No idea how. There's nothing on the door. But he's like, ah, and Rachel's like, oh, you're bleeding. And I'm like, he didn't even like
fucking how?
I don't understand. Okay, but it's whatever.
Yeah. One thing if you're like, oh, I bruised.
Yeah. Like, and I'm like, this Rachel girl is a terrible actress, and I really want to know where they found her because she's bad. Everyone else kind of like tries to put in effort, and she's just like, Dax, your shoulder's bleeding. Oh, ow. That's not good. We need to get out of here, guys. Like, we need to go. And so, anyway. So they're like, well, let's just find a back door. This one's probably just jammed. It's an old door. Let's just go, right? So they start looking for a back door. And the boys very quickly figure out that the house is a maze. And they can't figure out, like, where the back door is. So they come running back into the parlor area that they knew where it was. And they're like, let's just go out through a window. And they start pulling open the blinds. And they realize that the windows are boarded up. And they're like, were these windows boarded up before? And they're like, I don't know. And they're like, because I don't remember them being boarded up from the outside. And they're like, so now all of a sudden the house is all boarded up. And they're like, well, shit. Okay. And so they start calling for Lloyd around. And the girls are like, OMG, this is so dumb. This is so stupid. You guys are just so still trying to prank us, you know? And they were like, how is Lloyd supposed to have done this? Like, in the 5 seconds it took us to go around to the door and then come back, you know? But the boyfriend picks up a chair, Shane, picks up a chair and goes to the door and starts, like, smashing the door with the chair, trying to get it open. And is doing, like, hardly any damage to the door. And they're like, how is this possible? And I'm like, because you're using a chair against a door.
Like what?
Yeah. Like an old chair.
An old broken chair.
Against a door. But he's, like, doing no damage to it whatsoever. Like, not even a scratch, so kind of a thing. Okay. Anyway, the girls think it's dumb. They start joking. And they see this broken mirror. And, there's this mirror that's covered up with a cloth. And Rachel pulls it down. And Lana is immediately like, Taylor pulls it down. And Lana's immediately like, don't do that. Like, cover it back up right now. And they're like, what? Why? And she's like, just do it. And she doesn't. And the boys are still trying to do their thing off to the side. And Taylor starts like staring into the mirror and sees something spooky happening. And then she was like, guys, did you see that? Something is happening. Did you see that? I believe it now. Like, just, oh no. She's terrible. But she sees like the mirror start like, it looks like kind of water rippling kind of effect. And so she like pokes her finger into it. Don't ever do that. No. Pokes her finger into it and it like bites her finger off, right? And so they like yank her hand away and her like finger's bleeding, so they're trying to get her all bandaged up and stuff, and she's freaking out. And the boyfriend is like runs back over and is trying to beat the door down again because they got to get out of there and get her to the hospital now, right? And the chair breaks and he's just like, well shit. And the boys are like, why'd you stop? I'm like, because the fucking chair is broken. What are you talking about? Yeah. It's fine. It's whatever. Okay. Like, bitch. Anyway, so as they're like trying to like pry the door open with the broken pieces of chair, another car pulls up outside and they see that it's some teenage trick-or-treaters and they're like, oh, let's call for help. They can open the door from the outside, you know? So they're calling and banging and like slamming on the door and stuff, and you hear the girls crying in the other room, and the trick-or-treaters hear nothing. It shows a view of them outside. There's no sound coming out of the house. Like, none whatsoever. And so they just pull out some eggs and egg the door and then leave. And they're like, how did they not hear us? Oh my gosh, you know?
The magic.
The magic, yeah. And so they start realizing that they're stuck here when they hear screaming in the house. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's Lloyd. So they go searching for him, and they decide to split up into three groups. And it goes Shane, Rachel, and Lana, and then Brody, Taylor, and Dax. And so they stay, Dax, Taylor, and Brody all stay downstairs, and the other 3 go upstairs looking for her, right? Or looking for him. So they start realizing that like all of the doors are locked, and then they find this one door that Lana starts reaching for, and it just like turns and opens on its own. And you're like, ooh, spooky, that's clearly the door they want you to go into, right?
Yeah.
But Shane is like, what did you do? How did you do that? And she's like, it just opened. What do you mean? Like, it just opened, okay? And I'm like, what are they trying to set up here,
Is she a witch?
Is she a witch? Is she doing, like, just, I don't know. So I keep feeling like she's got some kind of magical powers that she maybe doesn't realize she has.
Yeah, yeah.
And either the witch is, like, feeding off of her, or it's her own magical abilities that are trying to fight back against the witch. Like, that's what I'm thinking is happening throughout the entire fucking movie. They enter this study and start looking around, and they're like, everything's still in the same place that it was before. And Shane's like, let's find a key so we can like a skeleton key or something, so we can start trying to open all these other doors. And Lana finds this old letter and realizes that it is she's about to read it, but it flashes downstairs. And Taylor, Dax, and Shitty Boyfriend find the kitchen, and Taylor's like, I don't feel well, I need to sit down, and immediately like throws up because, she's gushing blood out of her finger.
Yeah.
And Dax bumps his shoulder, or the shoulder that he bumped, somehow he bumps into Brody and stuff, and Brody's like, oh my gosh, man, you okay? And he's like, oh man, my shoulder just kills. And he's like, yeah, that looks infected. And then looks up at his face, and he's like, what's on your face, dude? And he turns around, and he's got this like boil growing out of his forehead, right? And you're like, okay, that's fast. Like, if he's infected, that's fast. And so he's just like grossed out from that, and he's like, we got to get out of here, we got to get to a hospital or something, And then it shows the other group again, and they're reading the letter, and they find out that it is a death warrant of the daughter of the house because they claim she was a witch, like she's been convicted of witchcraft, and so they sentenced her to drowning, and they like drowned her in this like pond out in the backyard. Jesus. Which I don't know if you'd call it a pond. It's like, I don't know, like taller than me in all directions, like just.
And like a backyard pond?
Yeah,
like a house pond.
Like a house pond, but it's just like this like hole in the ground. It's just filled with water. Yeah.
Okay.
But like it's deep enough that I wouldn't be able to touch the bottom, I think. So like, I don't know.
Okay.
Yep.
Pond, sure.
Yeah. So they find out that it's this death warrant for her and that she'd been drowned there. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's,
Yeah.
But Rachel sees something and like wanders off. And the other 2 don't realize that she's wandered off until a good hot minute later.
Going off on your own in a haunted house.
And she's like, what was that? And then goes off after it. I'm like, bitch, what? No.
Shiny.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
calm down.
Yep. So the group in the kitchen realizes that there's stuff cooking on the stove. And they're like, isn't this house abandoned? And they're like, well, what does that have to do with anything? And Brody's like, well, then who's cooking? Yeah. And then he goes over to the pot and he pulls out a hand boiling. There's like a hand boiling in there, and you're like, ugh, gross. And so so he freaks out, runs off to go throw up because he's disgusted. Yeah. And Dax the whole time is like, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. That's not real. And Brody is in the hallway about to throw up, and then he hears crying in another room, and he's like, who is that? And so he goes and he opens up a door and he's like, Rachel? And it flashes to the group upstairs where they realize that she's missing, and that flashes back downstairs again. Like, so it's just a lot of flashing back and forth that they really didn't need to do, but it's whatever. Well, Shit Boyfriend goes in and he sees Rachel standing in some like little kid room with dolls everywhere, and it's just, kid bed and stuff. And he's like, Rachel, where's Shane? Like, what's going on? Why are you down here? And she's like, this is impossible. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, all this stuff is mine from when I was a kid. And he's like, okay, well, let's go find Shane.
Let's get out of this
Let's
room.
Get out of here. And she's like, no, I can't right now. And he's like, okay, all right, let's just go find Shane. And she's like, no, just hold me. And like, is like hyperventilating. And he's like, okay, all right, it's okay, you're okay. We're gonna get out of here. It's all right. And then she starts like kissing on him. And he's like, no, we can't do this, And she just like pushes him on the bed, crawls on top of him, and he's like, nope, get off me, like, we can't do this.
Talk about aggressive.
I know. And she just starts making out with him, and he's a boy, and just, which I'm like,
he's like, no.
Yeah, he's very much like, oh shit. And then he goes, Should we at least shut a door or something?
No!
Your girlfriend just got her finger bit off. And he's like, okay, let's do this.
Like she's down the hall. It's fine.
Yeah. But then the door slams shut on its own. And he's like, what the fuck? And then looks up. And it's not Rachel. It's the witch! In really bad face makeup. And she bites a chunk of...
What the fuck? What?
Just leans down and like, right out of his face.
What?
And then he's like screaming and there's blood spurting everywhere and stuff. Like they did actually a pretty good job with that right there.
Okay.
But then she like just leans down and starts, biting the shit out of him.
Sure.
Yep. Uh-huh. And then it does a flash outside and it shows the mom at the diner, right? And she's just closing up and stuff, which she's squirting. It's whatever. She's just squirting ketchup into a bottle, but it looks like it's going up backwards. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, okay. So I don't know if they just filmed that wrong and put it in there wrong. It just looked wrong. Anyway, so Shane's stepdad, the sheriff, shows up and he's like, hello, ma'am. Yeah, he's the sheriff. And he's like, hi, how can I help you? And he's like, so, my, stepson is supposed to be hanging out with your daughter and their friends tonight. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I've been around seeing, he's like, I had a meeting that my son was supposed to like meet me at and he didn't show up at. So I'm just, trying to chew him out for it. And she's like, okay, whatever. Yeah. She's like, it's Halloween and stuff. And he's like, well, I've been around the other parents and they don't know where they are. Do you know where they are? And she's like,
also no.
No? What do you mean? What do you mean? And so she's like, and he's like, I'm sure it's fine. It's fine. I just scared you for nothing. Like, don't ever say that to anybody. Yeah, like, don't. So she's like, okay, well, you're going to tell me if you find him, right? And he's like, you'll be the first to know. You'll probably know before I will, like, I'm sure they're fine. They're just teenagers on Halloween and stuff. And she's like, okay, And then it flashes back to the house where Rachel is actually in a different room. Real Rachel is in a different room. And I call it witchy room with all the witchy stuff in it because there's things in jars and candles and more things in jars. Yeah. And sage and motor and pestle and things. So witchy shit. And it shows her in there and she's like, what is all this stuff? And she's just like the worst fucking actress. She was terrible. And they walk in and they realize that there's all these candles lit and they're like, who's lighting candles? Like, what the fuck is going on? And Shane finds another window, and so he starts going over and trying to, like, break down the boards. Sure. And he manages to get one of the boards loose and pulls it off and, like, reaches his hand through to, like, try to open the window. And instead, he just, like, sticks his hand in this black goo and, like, pulls it out, and he's like, oh, what is all this stuff? And, like,
could have lost a damn arm.
I know, right? Like, fucking what's her face just lost a finger. Like, yeah. But he just finds all this gross stuff. And then it shows Dax and Taylor. And they're searching for the house looking for shit boyfriend. They're like, where is he, And then he, like, comes running in, gushing blood. And, like, falls down. And he's just like, I don't want to die, man. I don't want to die. And Dax is like, you're not going to die, man. You're okay. And then he dies. Yeah. He just dies. He just, like, he's gushing blood, like, real fast. So there's not, yeah.
Sounds like Walking Dead.
Yeah. And then Taylor's just like, we're never gonna get out of here. We're never gonna get out of here. We're all gonna die. Yep. So there's that. And the group in the witch room start freaking out because they see this hand in a jar and stuff. And they're like, that's gotta be fake, right? And they're like, there's no way this is fake. Da-da-da-da-da. Well, the hand, like, moves in the jar. And so Shane, who was holding it, drops it because... Yeah. Duh. And it just starts, like, filling the room with this, like, gross smoke and stuff. So they all drop to the floor because it's all rising up and they're like, don't breathe it in. And Rachel, right? And Rachel cuts her hand on some glass of the jar, right? And she's, like, freaking out because it hurts her really bad. And it's a pretty bad cut. Dax and Rachel drag the ship boyfriend up to the front of the house. That's why I call him ship boyfriend, by the way, because he was like, yeah, let's go, Rachel. Anyway, drag him up to the front of the house, and Taylor's just like, there's no point. We're never going to get out of here. And then she looks over and sees a door wide open. Oh, and she's like, a door, and runs for it, right? And so she goes running outside, and Dax is like, Taylor, come back. And so he runs after her, and she turns around and looks at him and goes, Dax, and, like, points, and he turns around, and there's the witch standing there, and, like, he's, like, freaks out and turns around to look at her, and the door slams shut, and, which there wasn't the door there before in the parlor, because,
it was like a wall.
It was a wall, but he gets attacked by smoke and, like, freaking out, and Taylor is running around outside screaming for help, just like, help me, help us, like, just, trying to get someone's attention, even though you feel like they're miles away from town, when really, like, just down the fucking street are normal houses, like,
people are trick-or-treating
here. Yeah, so it's just... I don't know, it's weird. And then she keeps seeing little girls in white dresses that they never explain again. Okay? Never explain. These little girls in white dresses just like scampering all around and just like barely going out of sight when she can, you know.
They must all live in the room with the dolls.
I guess. Like, I have no fun. They don't explain the children at all. Like, okay. No. Anyway, yeah. So she's running and then she happens to fall in the pond and is like trying to crawl out, and the smoky ghost hands grab her and pull her down, so she drowns.
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
What does the witch look like?
She looks a lot like Lana, not gonna lie. Okay. So she's got this dark hair and she's really pretty in the picture, but she's got like this really just dumb, grotesque face makeup that you barely see glimpses of her. But she's got really dark hair and just white dress the whole time, right? And they just keep like showing you glimpses of her grayed like face, and so yeah. And but like, so I thought it was the witch outside for a second, then I realized no, those are children, and one of them's blonde. Like what's happening here? So I'd have no idea what the children are about, but I mean, witch.
I wonder like if they were like, what's creepy? Sprinkle that shit in.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it had to be, because they weren't.
They were like, children, right? Children suck. Let's
yeah,
throw those
children
in
are
there.
so scary. Like, yeah. So the upstairs group starts coming downstairs, and Rachel's like, I can't move right now. And so they start looking at her hand, and it's like starting to turn really like graying and like just
like her hand
it looks
is dying.
like, yeah, it looks like it's turning to stone, I thought. And so I thought she was gonna like turn to stone or something, but she doesn't. And she's just like, I can't, like, it's like it is affecting the rest of her. Like, she's having such a hard time moving. So the first time I'm watching it, I'm like, bitch, it's just your hand. But then like you're like, oh, I mean, I guess if it's this magical whatever, it's hurting you. Like, but they start like, man, what the hell is going on and everything. And for some reason, Shane brings up, what were you going on about with that mirror before? And Lana's like, what are you talking about? He's like, the mirror. When Rachel, or when Taylor uncovered it, you told her to cover it back up. And she was like, yeah, it's like superstition and stuff. He's like, what do you mean? And she's like, it's superstition that when somebody dies, you're supposed to cover the mirrors in the house because their spirits can be trapped there. And he's like, how do you know that? And she's like, it's superstition. I read. Don't you ever read? And like, there was a very weird pause there. She was just like,
I'm lying.
Yeah, like, just like,
weird.
I don't know why they made her, I don't know why she said it like that. I don't know why that was the line that was written.
Yeah, like that could have, yeah.
They just keep having moments of her like connecting with things, and like she'll like pick something up
almost
and just like
revealing things.
Like, yeah, and it's just
okay.
It's really weird. Anyway, so Shane is instantly like, okay, well, there is a ghost here, and it's the ghost of a witch, and she's haunting us, and we got to get the fuck out of here, okay? And they hear Lloyd screaming again, and so they hurry down the stairs, and that's when they find a hidden door leading to the basement, and so he pries it open, and they're all like, we're not going down there, and he's like, yeah, we are, we gotta go down there, and so they all go running down there, and they find Lloyd in a cage, like it's one of those cages that like the whole thing goes on top, you know, like,
oh yeah,
so it's just like a box that goes on top, and he's chained up to it, or tied up to it, and Shane is like trying to untie his hands, but they're like, it's pretty tight, and everybody's panicking and stuff. Oh, they hear something come down the stairs, so they freak out for a second, but it turns out to be Dax, and he's down the stairs, and he's like covered in boils now, like his whole face is, and he's not doing super well, and so he runs down, and he's like, oh my gosh, Shane, Brody's dead, Taylor got out though, and they're like, Taylor got out, okay, then we can get out, like so they don't know she's dead.
Yeah.
And he's like, we gotta go right now, we gotta get out of here. And Shane is like, I can't leave Lloyd, we gotta get him out of here, so please, Dax, please help me. Well, the girls happen to find this vent, like big old vent. I feel like it's more of a crawl space. So he's like, go, get out of here, we'll be right behind you, like, go find a way out. So they start crawling through, and Rachel crawls through first, and she's got this like massive cut in her hand, and she's like grabbing at everything, like she's not even like attempting to not crawl on it. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I guess it's already turning to stone or whatever, so you do you.
You're doomed.
You're doomed. And Dax is helping Lloyd, and he finds this pulley system, so he's trying to like pull on the rope so that it helps pull it up, and Shane's underneath trying to pull it up because he got Lloyd free from the arms. And Lloyd is trying to like crawl under, but he's like, she's coming, like she's gonna be here any second. And then the smoky ghost comes through and attacks Dax in the face, like just into his mouth, and he's like, ugh, like dying from it, and he lets go of the rope, and that was obviously the witch's intention, and the cage falls down right on Lloyd's neck and just blah. So he did. And then she like runs off and Dax is like, oh, she was inside of me. And I'm like, me too, bro. I would be like, like
violated.
Yeah, he's like so grossed out and freaking out. And then they show the girls find an exit. And so Rachel is like trying to like push it open and get her hand through. And the witch grabs her hand and starts yanking off her fingernails. And
no!
Yeah.
No.
Ew. Like ripping them off, and Lana is like grabbing at her leg trying to pull her back, right, and knocks herself out on the roof, like stands up and knocks herself out, so she goes out.
That's the dumbest thing.
Constitution of 1 that child has, that's for sure. And
wow.
Yeah, so she wakes up a little while later. Oh, and then Rachel gets dragged through, right? Okay. She wakes up a little while later and there's no Rachel. And she sees sunlight, and then she like happens to look up and there's this grate above her. And so she's like, oh my God, I can get out. And so she crawls up and she's outside, and then she sees this police car like starting to back away from the house and stuff. And she's like, so she runs over yelling for help, and the cop car stops and she runs around to the other side. She's like, please, you have to help us. And then it like randomly shows the cop like twitching and being like with like a grody gray face, and then she like freaks out and actually wakes up. So that was a dream.
Psych bitch.
Yeah. And I was like, that's one of the dumbest dreams they could have.
Yeah, that's whatever. Weird.
So she wakes up in another place, and she actually happens to see Rachel sitting in this like chair in the corner of the room, and she pulls out her phone really quick and turns on the light and is trying to see that way. And Rachel just starts going, you and Shane were right. She's taking things from us. And I'm like, bitch, when? When did they say that?
Yeah, when
they never said that. They never said it.
That is weird.
That's very weird. I think Dax said it at one point, but he said it to Taylor.
Okay.
And like, they never said that.
We didn't see that moment.
I feel like it had to have been a deleted scene that they like just maybe kept things in and didn't
think about the inconsistency.
Yeah, and it just
okay.
Yep. So I'm like, yeah, they never freaking said that. And Lana is just like, Rachel, what are you talking about? Rachel. And then hears a noise, and so she turns and looks back, and Rachel's is gone. And she's like, no. And is like freaking out again. And then she looks back, and there's the witch, who starts like over the back of the chair backwards and stuff, and then and then like starts crawling towards her, and they keep doing that bone cracky sound. No, which is normally a thing I hate. Like, first of all, things like crawling and then like things crawling backwards at you, making those weird noises, I don't normally like. But the whole time I was watching it, I was like, meh. It's a dumb mask you got on there, you know, like it's just
fucking makeup,
you know. And I feel like this one had like a higher quality content besides what they made the witch look like. Yeah. Like everything else looked fairly decent.
Like the nun.
You're
like, what are you doing with that look?
Yep, and so it's just, I don't know. Anyway, she hears another noise, and it is Dax and Shane crawling out of the tunnel that, like, you look over and you realize, oh, that was the vent. They had happened to crawl into this room and stuff. So they're coming out, and she's freaking out, and they find a door, and they get out and start running for it. Oh, so Shane is like, where's Rachel? And she's like, I don't know. She was there, then she wasn't. And he's like, okay, well, we gotta go find her. And the whole time, he's like, we can't leave Brody. We can't leave Lloyd. We can't leave Rachel, okay? I want you to keep this in mind, okay? Mm-hmm. So they're running around looking for her, and they happen to get upstairs again, and they find her standing in a bathroom, like wrapped in a bed sheet, right? Staring at herself in a mirror. And he's like, hey, babe. Hey, baby. Hey, what are you doing, hun? Like, let's go. And she's like, no. Leave me behind. And he's like, no, honey, like, let's go. Come on, let's go. And she's like, no. And then turns to look at him and like removes the bed sheet, and she's aged a ton. Like, all of her beauty is gone. She like looks super old now and stuff. And she's like, do you still love me? And he's like, yeah, baby, I do. Come on. Like, I love you. Come on, let's go. And she's like, I can't go on. I can't. And he's like, yeah, baby, come on, let's go. We gotta go. And he goes to grab her hand, and like the whole skin like rips off, and she falls backwards into the tub, and I think just dies of old age, okay? And you're like, okay.
It's and so like Mother Gothel when she's just like aging as she falls off of the window.
Yep, and just dies. And so they're like, Dax and Lana are like, we gotta go. And he's like, no, I don't, you know, and they're like, come on. So he goes, and the house starts like cracking, and they like run into another room to try to escape. right? And so, yeah, they're hiding in there, and they think that the witch is, like, actually coming, and so she's, like, you can hear her moving around, like, in the walls or something, and she starts pushing this one door open, and Shane slams it shut and is, like, holding it shut, and her spooky, like, ghost hands start reaching through and grab around his throat, right? So Lana runs over and grabs at the hands, and they just, like, disappear and drop him really fast. And he's like, how did you do that? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, the whole time they keep giving you these hints. I'm like, is she a white witch or something? Yeah. And like her powers are just fighting. So it shows outside again. A storm is starting to brew. Like there's the rain pouring down. And another cop car pulls up behind Brody's truck outside. And he calls the sheriff and he's like, hey, I just found the kid's truck. It's parked out in front of the old manor. I'm pretty sure they're probably up there. And he's like, what the hell are they doing up there? And he's like, I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure they're just hanging out inside, you know, and it's fine. He's like, I'm going to go up there. If you want to come over, you're welcome to, but I'm sure I'll find them just being dumb kids inside, you know. And he's like, okay, I'll meet you over there soon. And he drives up there to go look at the house. And back in the house, the kids are trying to move again. And Dax just starts talking about how it's useless and they need to burn the house down. And they're like, that's suicide, man. And he's like, well, it'll end one way or another. And they're like, no, man, we can't just like burn the house down. We're going to get trapped in here. And he's like, well, I can't do this anymore. And he's like covered and his face is all swollen and he's just, and they're like, no, man, we gotta go. And he's like, I need a second. You guys go. I'm right behind you. So they start going off and he goes off in a different direction.
Why would you trust that?
I have no idea.
Why?
Right? So it's,
okay, sorry.
Go on. You're fine. I'm like,
mm-hmm. Okay.
Not only that, they're very much like in a house where they keep getting separated and he's like, I need a second, I'll be right behind you. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. That seems logical. Let's do it.
So the creepy music starts going off again downstairs.
Sure.
Yep, with the phonograph. And that's when I realized what the fucking lyric was. That it's like, I always got hit as a kid. Like, just,
somebody call Child Protective Services.
Okay. It's so bad. Lana starts going like, I think she's watching us. And Shane's like, yeah, I think she is too. And then she looks around and she's like, where's Dax? And he's like, what? And so she goes off to start looking for him. And he's like, no, we have to leave him. Like, if anyone's getting out of here, we just gotta go. And I'm like, except you were like, no, fuck, we gotta find Lloyd. No, fuck, we gotta find Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fuck Dax.
I guess.
Very much Dax goes down to the basement and finds a bale of hay.
Of course.
And a can of gasoline.
Don't you have those in your basement?
Because, you know, like...
Yeah, typical.
But like one bale of hay, like it's just the perfect bale of hay right there. So like it's either like the witch decided to like trap him down. I have no idea. But like
that would be my first thought. I'd be like, this is way too.
Yeah, and it's like I'm pretty sure it's in the same room where the cage was supposed to be with Brody and stuff. But like, or not with Lloyd.
These rooms like actually exist at this point?
I don't know. Like no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's trying to set the bale of hay on fire, and obviously the witch doesn't like that, so she shows up and attacks him and is like ripping his insides out, like like pulling him out by the...
Ew.
Yep.
Sorry, my brain was stuck on so gasoline, but then how was he getting a flame?
He had a lighter.
Oh,
I guess that they never showed him having before. Like so
okay, intestines. Sorry.
Yeah, she's just yanking his intestines out like she's like it's just. That's what it seemed like to me. But she's all like, okay. So the whole time I'm just like, Google. Nobody cares, Google. So yeah, he dead now.
Okay.
And it shows the other two upstairs, and Shane's like pissed. So they're in the witchy room, and he's smashing all the witchy stuff, yelling like, you fuck with my friends, I'm gonna fuck you up. And he doesn't say fuck. And you know,
dang it.
I know. I was really hoping for that, but he's just like, come on, bitch, let's go. And so, and Lana's like, what are you doing? Stop. And he's like, no, I'm gonna do this. And then he goes over and like smashes some more boards on the window and like yanks it open. And he's like, get out of here, Lana. Like, go, get out of here. And the witch shows up right as Lana's trying to get out through the window and grabs his face and just like blasts him with smoky stuff and it like chars his face. And so he dead.
Okay.
But I mean, like, good boyfriend, at least, kind of, you know, he shit friend, but good boyfriend.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Laura crawls up through the grass, like she crawls up and like escapes through the grass, like covered in dirt and stuff, like just
what the fuck?
I have no fucking clue. I don't know. Anyway, so she's like covered in dirt and just grody-ness, and she actually sees the cop cars. Like she sees like a bunch of them out there.
Sure she does.
Right? But She actually does. And so she starts running towards them, trying to yell for help. But it's like still dark outside. It's still nighttime. Okay, there's still rain pouring and stuff. And the witch chases her back over to that pond where Rachel was drowned. And she sees like this little like cross where they like buried her, I guess, or whatever, or like said this is where she died and whatever.
Like
and
the witch originally?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so she falls into the water.
Why?
Because the witch just like chases her into it, and it's dark and she can't see anything. And so
I guess
she falls in and is screaming for help, and the cops are like, who is that? Let's go help, so they run over, but she like conveniently drowns right before she gets yanked under before they find her and stuff. And then it's sunlight. It's daytime. It's daytime. And then one of the cops sees the pond and sees a body in it. And he starts, hey, there's a body over here. And so they reach in and drag her out. And it's clearly Lana's clothes and stuff. And so they're like, oh, it's Lana. But they never show you her face. Okay?
How convenient.
How convenient, right? And so they start doing CPR on her and wake her up. And they're dragging her towards the other cop car so they can go get her to the hospital and stuff. And it's a very long, it's just such scene of them dragging her over to the cars, and she keeps like grabbing at the grass as she's going and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, this is clearly not fucking Lana, like. No. And so but I was thinking that this was like the witch possessing her, like took over her body or whatever, right?
Like resurrected through her,
like. No, anyway, so they take her off into the car, and then they show the cop looking, and they find another body in the water, and they yank her out, and it's Lana.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's got her heart ripped out. Like, her chest is all ripped open and her heart's ripped out, and she's in her underwear. And so the witch had killed her, somehow revived her old body, which is what she was taking things from us. What?
So like, give me your fingernails so I can wear them?
Yeah, and I guess I'll take your age and just your one finger, just the one, and...
Just take the body.
Just take the body.
Just take the damn body. What?
Right? I don't know. So I guess... I don't know what she took from Dax. I don't know what she took from Brody, other than like his face right there. I don't know what she took from Shane. Maybe? I don't know what she took from Taylor.
Yeah,
Nothing. She literally only took from Rachel, and probably took her youth and beauty, and then Taylor's heart, or Lana's heart. That's it.
She took his shoulder blood,
I guess,
and his face. No,
his intestines, I guess.
Yes. I have those.
Yeah, but she just like burned Shane's face off. So like. Anyway, so they show, they show Lana, like, with her heart, or like their chest ripped open and stuff. And then they show the cop car that she was sitting in, that they put her into, and the cop's dead. And all of Lana's clothes are laying sprawled out on the ground, and she's walking off with, like, a cloak over her, and she's in her white dress and stuff, and you see it's the witch from before, from the portrait. It's that bitch. And she just, like, walks off. What? And that's it. It's the end of the movie.
So they like helped her be free from the house.
I guess.
And now
and they have like this dumb voiceover of all of them talking and stuff. And like, you and Shane were right. She's taking things from us. She's trapped here. Blah blah blah.
And I'm like, as
she walks away, they're doing this voiceover, and I'm like, except like. They never said any of that. Like, they never said she's taking things from us. They never said she's actually trapped here. Yeah. They just suggested she was trapped there because the mirror was covered. But the point of covering a mirror is so that somebody doesn't get trapped there. And I'm like, you did real good covering up the bathroom mirrors, bitches. Like, so.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's one of those things that like people have been disappearing in the house for years, and so she's been taking shit from them for years, but she's boiling hands.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And keeping them in jars.
So the whole time I was thinking like, oh, Lana's, she's got some hidden magical power. Maybe the witch wants to use her body because she's actually somehow a witch too. But no, then she takes her heart.
Okay.
And they never say anything else. And so the whole time I'm thinking, oh man, Lana and her are going to have this good witch, bad witch showdown at the end or something. And Lana's going to find out she actually has magical abilities, and she like beats her back or something, and she and Shane survive, but like everybody else dies, or she survives and everybody else dies. Like, no, that would have been a better movie, I think. Like, just.
Okay.
So everybody dead.
Fun.
That's what I call a Wendy movie, because Wendy likes when everybody dies at the end.
Well, there you go.
Yep. So.
Okay. Well, that was a ride. Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
In that movie. That is one though that I'm kind of like, that sounds interesting to watch.
Yeah. I enjoyed watching it for what it was.
Yeah.
The quality of it was pretty well done. Most everyone was a decent actor in it.
Rachel.
Except for Rachel and Taylor. Taylor wasn't that good either, but Taylor was supposed to be the annoying bitch. So like, meh, it's okay.
What do you rate it?
Like a B-, I guess. Just like
okay.
So it's, I mean, I'd give it maybe 7 out of 10 for the quality and the acting. I feel like there was just missing things from the plot.
The story is like a 3.
The story is a 3, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's very much just like some teens get trapped in a house and there's a ghost, like...
Daring teens.
Yeah, it's daring teens,
yes.
Yeah. So...
Okay. That was a fun one.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, that's for sure. I would definitely tell people to watch this one. Maybe I missed something in their conversations, but I really don't ever remember Lana and Shane being like, she's taking things from us. Like,
and you've watched it twice now.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, they don't say Lana's name at the beginning of the movie for a good while.
Really?
Like, she's like the first, like the second character you really see, other than the kid who gets killed right there at the very beginning. She's very much the person say that her mom doesn't even come over and say her name. She's just like, here you go, sweetie, have some tea. And she's like,
have you back.
Yep. And like, not even like a, Lana, you're only home for the weekend. Like, nothing like that. Like, nothing. Don't say her name. I very much for a long time was just like, who is this bitch? Like,
and girl did this and she went.
Yeah, and it wasn't until they were like talking later when Rachel's like, you know my friend Lana, and I'm like, oh, Lana, okay, that's her name.
Sure.
Like, yeah, sure. So that's that movie.
Okay. How like gory was it? Was it pretty?
It had some decent gore parts, like the one where he gets his face ripped off. That was like the best well done part they'd done of it. I guess Taylor and her finger cut off thingy was pretty interesting because she like was missing from here up, but you don't get to see that one super well.
Okay.
But his face was actually pretty good, so they did a pretty decent job on that one.
Okay. Where can people watch The House of the Witch?